Welcome back to Clash of Cultures as we continue our 2023 college football preview. Our stop today is the Auburn Tigers War Eagle. But before we get into football, like I always, we just want to give thanks and love to all the people out there that continue to show us love as we've been doing this series. Numbers keep going up, views keep going up. Again, we are having the time of our lives in doing this. So continue to join us. Please press that like button. Please press that subscribe. Leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts because we love engaging with you guys. So with that being said, Stephen, what's your thoughts on Auburn?
Okay, so I feel like I've said this like 5 times already, but I mean it this time. So comment section, if I said it before, like I'm sorry, but I mean it this time. But actually, no, it actually makes sense. This is going to be the trickiest preview to date for me personally, and now that would make sense because we're going to go further on, but Auburn hasn't been relevant in the grand scheme of things since the Iron Bowl victory. You know, the kick six, and in the last 10 years or so, they've only had 2 10-win seasons. That 2013 year, they went 12-2 and lost to Florida State in the title game. In 2017, they were 10-4 and lost to UCF in the Peach Bowl. And that was the year that UCF claimed to be the national champions because Auburn had beat Alabama that year. So after a 5-7 year last year, I think coming into this preview, I guess I would say the easy prediction would be to say you think they're going to go 5-7 again when you look at their schedule. They're coming into the season ranked 39 according to ESPN. I feel like that is extremely high for a team that was 5-7 last year.
I agree.
And I know, they're an SEC team, so they recruit well, but I think 39 is extremely high for, again, a team that was under 500 last year. They did bring in some talent from the transfer portal, 3 starting offensive linemen, Avery Jones, Dylan Wade, and Gunnar Britton. So I think the run game might be a little bit better. Receiving core should look a lot better, bringing in 10 touchdown guys like Shane Hooks from Jackson State and Jair Shorter from North Texas. Both those guys were not playing in the SEC type football, though. One of them being obviously at a HBCU, the other one being at a smaller group of 5 school in North Texas. Jaquez Hunter is being back after the second string back last year, tallying 600 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's probably going to be the starting back this year. They brought back 5 of the 7 front 7 players with 3 or more years at the collegiate level. So their defense, their front 7 should be straight. But lastly, I think the biggest question mark, and I would say really in the last 2 weeks or so, it's what, the 10th, 11th, is the quarterback position. Yeah. And I don't think we would have, if we would have done this video 3 weeks ago, we wouldn't be saying that. But that's because obviously Robbie Ashford transferred from Oregon a couple years ago. He had a lackluster year, 1,600 yards, 7 touchdowns, 7 picks. Again, the team around him wasn't good. He had 700 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. But they bring in Peyton Thorne, who transferred from Michigan State, former Big Ten, starting caliber quarterback, decent quarterback. 2021, over 3,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, 10 picks. Last year, 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 11 picks. And again, he's playing in the Big Ten, so it's not like a slouch of a conference. He wasn't in the, the MAC or the American Conference. He's playing against, Ohio State, Michigan. He's playing against good teams, and he had decent numbers. So I think this gives Hugh Freeze more options at the quarterback position. I still would probably say Robbie Ashford is going to start, but it's the same thing we talked about with the Alabama video. Why did he get brought over after spring camp if the coaches didn't think he was going to play, or if he didn't think he was going to play? And it's not like he wasn't penciled in to start at Michigan State. Like, he could have easily won his job right back. He started for the first 2 years. So I think that's kind of the question mark surrounding them. Now, unlike what we said with the TCU video, I don't think the quarterback is going to be the end-all, be-all for Auburn. I don't think the team is talented enough to beat the likes of Alabama and LSU and compete for the SEC title just yet. In a few years, maybe. But they are projected to only win 6 games this year. They went 5-7 last year. So, I think it's going to be similar. But we'll just have to see. They had the 3rd worst scoring offense in the SEC last year, only ahead of Vanderbilt and Kentucky. They had the worst passing offense in the SEC. They were only better than 10 teams in passing last year, which is completely terrible. But what do you feel about Auburn? And do you disagree with any of those, or?
No, well, so there's one point I disagree with, and that's that Peyton Thorne isn't going to start. I believe he's going to be the starting quarterback. I believe a senior doesn't transfer from Michigan State in a situation where, like you said, he probably had a feel that maybe he could get the start there to come down to Auburn if he didn't believe that he was going to be the starter there. No diss to Robbie Ashford, but like you said, I don't think he had the greatest season. He was under 50% completion percentage last year, at exactly 1-for-1 touchdowns to interceptions at 7-for-7. You did mention the 700 yards rushing. So obviously he brings that athletic ability, but I think Peyton Thorne can do that as well. I think he's a little bit, obviously, more seasoned, a little bit of a better passer. And if you look, this Auburn team, you're talking about an entire turnover. So we're looking at maybe somewhere between 12 to 14 starters. That's out of your starting 22 that are going to be transfer portal players, right? And you mentioned a bunch of them, but we can't forget Caleb Burton coming over from Ohio State. I was very high on him as a recruit. Again, not sure what his role is going to be, if he's going to get in the starting lineup. But like you mentioned, Hooks and Shorter both came from non-Power 5 conferences. Caleb Burton was a 4-star recruit coming in. So the amount of turnover for Auburn is crazy. Really, I think the only team that we've highlighted so far that can match this and obviously surpass them a little bit is that Colorado team. This is an entirely new team. I'm looking at least 5 other transfer portal players that are going to be starting on defense, to include Larry Nixon, Austin Keys, Jalen McClellan. They have an entire new team that's going to be playing for Auburn. And I feel like chemistry is going to be a part of this, right? Again, if it is Peyton Thorne, the starting quarterback, well, he's never thrown to any of these receivers. He's never played behind this offensive line. The offensive linemen have never played with the other offensive linemen. So getting that chemistry is going to be key for this Auburn team. I don't believe, and obviously we'll get more into this when we get into the schedule, I don't believe that this is going to be a good team. Their biggest talent last year was Tank Bigsby, as we know, got drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he's gone. So obviously he's gone. What they are bringing back is I don't think as much in terms of returning talent. Now, I think they are bringing in talent, but like I said, it's all about how that all gels together. So I'm very concerned for Auburn in 2023.
So just looking at their schedule, so like I said, they do have a projected win total of 6. Like I said, that sounds about right. They're probably going to be favored in the first 3 games. But after that, they could lose 5 straight realistically. Now, could they beat A&M? Yes. Could they beat a team like Mississippi State? Yes. But I would say, Georgia and LSU are going to be chalks. They're not going to win those games. Ole Miss is going to be a hard game to win. Luckily, it's at home, but I don't know how much that is really going to matter. Then you play Vanderbilt. You'll probably beat Vanderbilt. New Mexico State's going to be a win. So, I counted five or so games that I would say I would bet for them to win, and then they may be able to get one more. So that's why I think 6 is probably the right number.
I have them about 5-7, 6-6. This is going to be a tough sled for this Auburn team, especially when you look at the schedule. Now they have some, like you said, some easy wins, but there's a big piece of this in games I don't see them winning. I don't see them beating A&M, even though I think A&M is going to be down. I don't see them beating Georgia. I don't see them beating LSU. I don't see them beating Ole Miss. I don't see them beating Mississippi State. I don't see them beating Arkansas. I don't see them beating Alabama. That was 7 right there. Now, is it possible they pull off one of those?
Yeah.
Yes. But if I was being realistic, I would have to say I have them going 5-7 next year.
So I would say their floor is 5-7, but their ceiling is 7-5. Because I do think that they could win the UMass, Cal, Samford, Vanderbilt, Arkansas game, and then I think they could pull off the Mississippi State or the A&M game. So that's why I said their ceiling would be 7-5. But I would say, like I said, 6-6 sounds about right.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be the first time where I've agreed with the ESPN projections. It might be the first time, but I feel like this one wasn't really hard because you literally just took the non-power 5 teams and said we think they're going to win, and then they took the conference games and we said we think we're going to lose.
Well, yeah,
So
and I think that's about what it is.
yeah,
I
so
don't see them winning many SEC games.
yeah, and I mean I think next year. So a comment in the LSU video explained that next year is when they're going divisionless. By the way, I know you asked the
Right.
comments to let you
Yeah,
know, but
same Big Ten just announced as well.
okay, yeah. So I mean I think it's going to get even tougher for Auburn
Yes.
because now it's going to get tough for everybody. But I mean when you're a middle of the road team like Auburn, I mean I don't know how they get back to prominence.
I don't know if it gets tougher. Auburn plays in the West, right, with LSU and Alabama. So as we kind of go forward, because I think the East, the SEC East, is a little bit weaker. So I'm not going to say it helps them. I think they're going to fall behind. There's just some teams over the course of time. Auburn is in a rebuild. There's some teams over the course of time that they're going to fall behind. I think Hugh Freeze is a heck of a coach. But they need a rebuild. He's going to have to do some serious recruiting to get this team back up to a level of being an SEC, I guess, power or even contender.